Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it. Hope you'll return often and tell your friends about us. Before we start the show, I want to turn to Father Ron Walters for a prayer.
Oh God, as we express our creativity in creating in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father Ron. Really do appreciate it. Have a few things to announce this evening. Number one, we have a Patreon account, New Tracks Modeling. And if you can give us a little help financially to pay for running the show, we'd appreciate it. We also naturally need help running the show. So if you have a little spare time, thank you. And we have our scholarship where we're looking for applicants. So if you know somebody that can qualify, please let them know about our scholarship show. All of our build-alongs are available on our website, newtracksmodeling.com. So I won't go over those with you again. And our first guest this evening is Phil Edholm, who has a quick tip for us. Phil?
Super, Jim. Thank you. So this is actually the last iteration of the using PowerPoint to do a whole range of modeling activities. And so what I want to do tonight was just talk about kind of the last little bit of this, which is what I called arranging research and planning for a model using PowerPoint. So this is actually the concept that you can actually use PowerPoint as a way to store all the information for a modeling project. So this is a model. I've built a module, had a number of buildings on it. And essentially this PowerPoint deck that you're seeing here is kind of all the information I've gathered. So when I think about, I want to do a modeling scene and I say, I want to go look at something specific and I go find some images on Google, what I do is just copy those images and I paste them into a slide. And the beauty of PowerPoint is it's easy with the slide sorter to look at the slides. You can kind of arrange them into blocks, however you want to do it, but you can keep all the information in one place in a big file. And when you get done, you just save it and store it and you're done with it. So really the thought process there is, using that kind of a thing on a slide so that you can actually, position everything. So if you look at like the module, all the buildings were designed using the slide deck, but then the research was put there. So like these were the buildings that were built in there and designed. So I actually designed the buildings, how they would look. So I got a good idea of how they would look. You can actually make these and print them out in paper and do, mock-ups. And then I use that to actually go in to do the actual building. And these are kind of all the pictures that I keep in there. So these are, what I did was I went out and literally found dozens of pictures that I can use when you go to do the model accuracy and put them all in one place. So, we've talked a lot, and this is really the close of this whole section on this. It'll go back to Hank for next week. We really talked about PowerPoint as a modeling tool. We talked about using it as a drawing tool. We talked about Easyscape, sketching, the variable size outputs, this concept that you can have standard outputs of printing, so you can print lots of things. We talked about how to do basically things from signs using photo images. We talked about how to do decals. We talked about how to do large prints. And then the last thing is this concept of indexing and easy to find. So really that kind of closes this off. Other options, obviously, Google Sheets is an option. Father Ron's shown us using Inkscape. There are a number of commercial drawing and drafting programs. There are also some freeware versions. But the whole point is if you have a drawing package you know how to use, it's a good way to model it. So anyway, with that, I'm going to close and throw it back to you, Jim, unless there are any
Bill,
questions.
Bill, thanks so much for doing this. I know everybody's learned a lot from it, and I really do appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you.
And now Bob Davidson is going to join us to talk about his workshop tips and tools and so forth. And this is the last one of these for this segment for Bob. And Bob, I want to thank you so much for doing these.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and hard to believe it's been 16 weeks already.
How about that?
So we'll share the screen and we'll get going. So again, welcome to Workshop Tips and Tricks, and sharing more than 50 years experience in theatrical and exhibit design and production. And tonight, kind of as to close out, calling this Curtain Up, Theatrical Painting Techniques for the Modeler. Most of what we do in the theater is very large scale, but there are some techniques that can be adapted, and I picked out a few of them to share with you tonight. And I will preface this by saying I'm not the world's greatest painter, but I try hard. So the first thing I would like to talk about is stippling or spattering. And we typically use this to bring depth to color rather than just having a flat paint. You know, while you might do that at home on a wall, visually, there are so many things with reflected light and light coming through windows, reflecting off of furniture, that a wall typically is not just a single color. The tools that we use for this are natural sponges that you see there on the left, and I use a denture brush, which you're going to see in a few moments. A natural sponge, you can find them. Actually, I bought all mine while I was visiting Tarpon Springs down in Florida. You want to try to find something that has the smallest cells that you can find. And I bought one sponge and I cut it up into various pieces. And this is what I use for stippling, is just a way of giving some texture. And here's an example of that. This is a little platform I'm building for my elevated railroad. And I'm doing a concrete effect. Now, I haven't aged this at all. There's no weathering on this yet. But I use that sponge. You can see, I know it's tough using my camera and then going over the internet here, but you can see all this speckling that's done here. That was all done using a couple different colors with the sponge, with a natural sponge. Working very dry, but it's very effective to get that, you know, this kind of effect of depth and multicolored, which if you look at concrete, there are a lot of different colors in it. So once this is weathered, it'll tone that out a little bit. So that's stippling. To do spattering, normally in large scale, we'll just load up a brush with paint and you kind of shake it at the wall. But working in our size, this is actually the denture brush that I showed you back here, which I get from my dentist. And I use the small bristles here. They're very stiff, and you just dab them in a little paint. And here's a little quick video. And I just use my thumb, and it just flicks the paint out onto whatever it is you want to paint. This is a really bad picture. I apologize, but you can see this was just a medium gray set of stairs, and I used some light gray, and you can kind of see how it started. It spattered in there to give it some depth. These are going to be kind of granite stairs, so this is the start of that. So using a toothbrush is a great way to do some spattering. So that's stippling and spattering. The next technique that's kind of cool is I call it garbage undercoating. A scenic artist showed me this. He was a painter on Broadway for many years, John Kenny. And he used to use all his old paint, and he would prime all the scenery, all the flats with the old paint. So these are some colors that I had laying around. You might read, this is the kit that Nick Massey from ITLA did about a year ago. I just pulled it out. I primed it gray to cover up what I had done before. And then you can see all these different colors. I just roughly brushed them on, just kind of dumped them on there and let it dry. Then when I spray over it, it kind of all disappears, but you can see here in the details, you can see there are all these highlights and shadows, and it just gives so much depth to the paint. It's just a neat technique to, it's kind of weathering before you paint. And obviously I'll still go back and there'll be a bunch of weathering on this as I go along. So that's another, here's another section. And you can see how the colors are kind of bleeding through, but it's very, very soft, very muted. It's just a neat and very simple technique, and you can use up a lot of old paint that you have laying around. Next is toilet paper plaster. We used to do this with paper towels, actually, and newspaper, and soak them in water and glue. And this is back when we used to use horsehide glue, and stick them to flats, to canvas. We were working a lot on canvas at the time. But here, so this is just a piece of styrene. This is a brick sheet, an HO scale brick sheet that I had in the box. I pulled it out. I just primed it with a rusty brown color. Took some Scotch 77, and this is a technique that you'll find elsewhere on the web. And then I took a single layer of tissue paper. This is blow your nose tissue paper, not wrap a package tissue paper. And glued it down, and you can see it's kind of bleeding through. I then painted the whole thing with an off-white. And then, if you remember way back when we talked about these scratch brushes, how I used them to do graining on small pieces. Well, I also use them to scratch away some of this tissue paper. And what you can do is you can create a flaking, either just flaking areas or areas where the plaster is all just pulled away. And what it does is expose the brick that's underneath. So it's just kind of a simple, quick technique to, if a building has been parged or, it's been painted a lot of coats, this is just a kind of an easy way to get some layering effects there. So the final thing I wanted to just share with you all is called French enamel varnish, FEV, which is used a lot by furniture makers. Basically, its components are shellac, orange shellac. Now they call it amber shellac. I don't know why it's not called orange. And then pigments. We used to use aniline dyes a lot. They're very hard to find now. But you can use acrylic. And what we use there's a lot of different things you can use. This is I'll show you the technique, but the choice of colors you use for a base coat and then for your glazing allow you to do so many different things. You could do gold leaf, you could do all different shades of wood. But here I just took a scrap piece of styrene and I painted it with this green, this medium green. And I didn't spray it, I brushed it because I want these streaks in here. What I'm doing is laying the foundation for wood grain. Then I went over and just dry brushed some black, and we used to use our thumbs in big scale to put in knots, but I just did a couple of darker areas, but really just a very simple dry brush. And then let that dry. And then you take your shellac, your orange shellac, and pigments, and you can see here is just the raw orange shellac, and then I layered over just mixing some brown pigment into the shellac and brushing it over, and basically you can take a piece of styrene and turn it into a piece of wood. And you can see that there's, you can see the graining, see kind of the hint of the knot. So a neat technique, just again, by varying the base color, by varying how you do graining, if you do any graining. You can use this to do marbleizing. You could do it to fake out gold leaf. So it's just a fun technique to play with. And again, there's a lot of information on it up on the web because it's a pretty common technique for artisans doing furniture and restoration. So those are some of the just techniques that we use in the theater. As always, I have a tool of the week, and this is something that I found about 6 months ago, and I absolutely love it. It's called the wet palette. And it's not a thing that you go to see the dentist about or your doctor, but it's just basically a plastic box with a sponge in it and then some specialized papers that sit on top of it. And if you're custom mixing any paints or anything like that, what this does is by putting this, what they call hydrofoam, which is again, just a sponge, and these sheets, you close up the box and your paint won't dry out for a week to 10 days. So if you're doing a project over several days and you've mixed up a custom color and acrylic, it'll stay on this sheet and it stays usable for over a week. So it's just a neat little thing. It's not very expensive. This happens to be the one I have. There's a bunch of them out there, but highly recommend that. And so finally, the neat website, and hopefully I'm not preaching to the choir, but for the final episode of this, the neatest website we have is our own, and that's our website up on YouTube. I can't tell you how many times I go back, and I don't know that we're all aware of how many great little snippets of information are up on our YouTube site. The stuff that Phil has done, Martin, Greg, Tom Farrell, his stuff. I've been going back to Tom's stuff the last few weeks. This is such a great resource that we have available to us for free, or hopefully you'll pay a few bucks a month on Patreon to allow us to keep this going. And I can't say enough that this is better than any of the other sites. It's easy to find stuff. Everything is interesting. A lot of people don't know that each show is broken down into segments on the YouTube site. So you don't have to watch the whole show. You can jump right to a specific segment. Here's Touch Toggles, Tom Farrell. So anyway, that's everyone. I don't owe Jim any money or anything like that. This is sincerely what I feel that this is just such a great resource for modeling. As always, as Jim said, this is the last episode for this season. I'm open to bringing this back in the fall. So if there are any tools or topics you'd like to learn more about, or any projects, one of the things that I've done recently is I built myself a spray booth, and I might do a couple weeks on that in the fall. But there's lots of other things out there. So if you have any ideas, I've gotten a few already, please forward them on. But to carry us over the summer, starting in June, this is just going to be a couple of minutes every week over the summer. The Great Dollar Store Extravaganza. I love going to dollar stores, and some of the stuff you find there. I just found something. I'll share it real quickly. I was at the store, and let me get out of this so I could stop sharing my screen.
You're stopped.
What's that? Here we are. I found this acrylic, it's this brush for $1.25, and I found the same brush over at Hobby Lobby for $7. So they get in all kinds of stuff. So over the summer, each week I'll share a couple of items that I find at the dollar store, and just to keep you aware of the craziness that I do. So that's what I know. Thank you, Jim.
Anybody have any questions for Bob?
Yeah, Bob,
Yes,
when you're doing the shellac,
yes.
are you putting the brown over the shellac or mixing
No,
it?
you actually mix the pigment into the shellac.
I thank you.
Bob, when you were stippling the onto the concrete with the natural sponge,
Yes,
I guess the natural sponge looks like it's so soft. You're doing a very, very light touch, I expect.
very light touch and very dry.
Okay.
The secret with that is you have to wet the sponge, get all the water out of it, squeeze it as hard as you can to get water out.
Mhm.
And then I usually let it sit for about an hour.
Ah,
So it's not dry, but it's still soft,
okay.
right? But you really want to get all the water out of it. And then it's a real simple technique. So
Okay. And just
fun
like
with
sponging on rust or something, you dab most of it off. So you're almost dry brushing.
that's right. Exactly.
All right. Thank you.
That's an interesting technique. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, they're yeah, here it is.
Got it.
That's one of them. I've got a whole mess of them. The thing, like I said, is you have to be careful is you can find some that have really big pores. So you want to try to find the part of it that is as fine as you can get.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Bob. Really do.
You're very welcome. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, next we want to follow up again with Tom Yorke on his building of his model and his build along. We left him with some weathering that he had started last week that he's going to continue for us today. Tom, welcome. That's what I was kind of concerned about. because
Yeah, Jim, I don't think Tom's here. I was trying to see, he had a different name, but I don't see him here. So we'll see if he comes later.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I didn't see him either, but I thought he might be using another name that I just didn't recognize because I didn't recognize him last week either. So anyway, rather than that, let me go to Martin Brechbiel, NMR, who is going to start building an old kit, a LaBelle Sacramento North trolley car. Martin, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. We'll see if we can get this started here without making a mess of it. Where is this sharing button? Ah, there it is. Right where I left it last time. How's that look so far? Come on.
Really good.
There we go. How's that? Okay, so, well, since Jim's read the title, I won't read it to you. But this is part one of many, and I have no idea how many might be because I'm about a week ahead of you as of right now. Well, maybe 2 weeks. And as you'll see, there's good reason for that. Okay, so this is what this kit is. Well, that's what it says on the outside of the box. And it says body kit only. And that's kind of important to note immediately. That's what's in it. This does not provide anything other than the body. So you're getting this is a box of wood that builds the body shell. Everything else, you're on your own. Your exterior, interior details, anything you dream of that you'd want to put into this, that's up to you. And trucks and drive, well, there's a challenge for the modern trolley modeler. So, but you got a box of wood, and a box of wood lets you do anything if you're careful. Oh, by the way, this is to note the address on there. This is Cheyenne, Wyoming. This is a recent production kit. This kit's been in production for decades and decades and decades. And you can tell how old it is by the address on there. So Cheyenne, Wyoming is actually, within recent memory. There are other addresses. And I have a second one of these, and it's not this address, but it's basically the same kit, except a little different on the inside with the instructions. Okay, so open it up and take a look. Well, these are the easy parts to identify. You've got two side blanks. These are, let's see, I had a cursor, there it is. You have two sides. Interesting, one has actually got the kit number on it, 261. These two end pieces, they're not attached to anything. They're just laid out where they'll probably go, give or take a bit. A piece of wood for a floor. Boy, this is exciting. And here's what the roof looks like from the inside. And it's 261 or 262. This builds, the same roof builds is used for the combine. And you'll see why that becomes interesting later. Okay, and you'll see the ends are rounded. Well, that's nice because then you don't have to do that part of the rounding. That can be really annoying to do. And you look at the rest of the roof. Well, it's not rounded in this dimension. So think about that in the future. We're going to have to come back and curl the ends down, fill the little bit of where you're going to take this piece off when you take the curve. It's going to be lots of fun. I'll probably use my belt sander. I don't recommend that for anybody else unless you're a really good friend with your belt sander. These clerestory sections actually fit up inside here, so they have to be fitted in there. I don't remember what these blue parts are, but they had something to do with the roof, and it said both ends blue. I think, okay, whatever they are, set them aside. There's another part about LaBelle kits. The parts are color coded. One end or both ends will be a color. They may or may not be the same color at both ends. You have to sort these all out, figure out who's what, where, set them aside, hopefully use the right one at the right time in the right place. Not too terribly bad if you get it wrong. You can always pry it off and do something with it later. Yeah, don't panic yet. It's because this kit, being one of the modern ones, comes with a roof rounding kit inside. I've never used one of these. I have no idea what it's like. It seems pretty obvious what it will do. So we'll have fun with that. This end pack. This is all the doors. Well, they're not just the doors for the ends. They're actually the doors for the sides too. And being 261, that's the coach. This is all milled out and shaped bits of wood, which you're going to have to chop up a lot finer, and I'll show you where they go tonight. But they're generally the the posts that go in between the windows. So there's actually, you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them there. And you don't need this outside piece. That's kind of important to know. So you have to be really careful when you look at the instructions versus what's in your hand and say, oh, that's what this really means. There will be many moments of, oh, that's what this means throughout building this kit. Oh yeah, so the rest of the parts, you got a box of sticks. You know, we got all 2 different types of blue. We've got reds, browns, greens, blacks, all different colors. We've got some glazing material in here. We've got some wire. I don't know why. We'll figure that out later. I'm not too concerned about it. If this is like the normal LaBelle kit, there'll be parts in it that I never use. And I'll wonder why the heck they were there in the box to begin with. And they'll never even be referenced in the instructions. So, you have to not worry about that. If you come up with extra parts at the end, it's not your fault. It happens. So, hey, there's, that's what you're building, the top one, this coach. So this is important. It's nice to know what your endpoint is, what it looks like, because otherwise you look at some of the parts and you hold them up and you say, where does this go? How does this possibly fit here? And it doesn't look like the one in the picture. That's because the one in the picture is the right one. The one you're holding in your hand has to be modified in some way. You can download the instructions off the LaBelle website. This is kind of handy. It comes as a PDF. You can convert that, print that, chop it up, convert it to pictures. It's very useful. And you have to remember, interestingly enough, the instructions are for both cars. So you have to kind of dissect the instructions every now and then. Oh yeah, I'm not building the combine. I don't need to look for that part. It's not in the box. So instead of driving yourself crazy looking for parts in the instructions that are not for the car that you're building, that aren't there, you have to not panic. This is something that was not, I think, in the original old instruction, an isometric drawing. This is actually kind of useful. Parts are numbered. You can actually figure out, oh, that's what he's talking about in the instructions. That goes there. You can see these window pieces. Now, you have to remember the milled out piece actually has 4 of these. So you're gonna have to cut those apart. You can see there's a notch at the top, and it actually fits and wraps around this recess on the sides. So they actually snap into place. Snap is probably too nice a word, but they will fit with persuasion. In some cases, persuasion involves sanding. Sometimes it involves a sharp object like a scalpel, but it will go in. Here's another thing, remove, because that door, for some reason, is supplied with a divider in it. Go back, it's not there. So you take the ones out of the door and the end packs, and they don't look like anything in the picture. Well, there's a reason for that. You need to take that piece out. We'll do that later. But you can see over here, in the same isometric, is the combine door. Don't look for the combine door. It's not there. Okay, so I took the instructions, downloaded the PDF, chopped them up, converted them to pictures, and just so I could put them into the slides and it would be helpful. You can actually see things a little better. Yeah. If it's your kit, you can make it as smart and as detailed as you want, which means if you want to mess it up, you're entitled to do that. If you want to convert it to something else, have fun with it. I look at wooden kits as just a box of raw materials. So if you really want to build the prototype, go for it. If you want to use it and turn it into a doodle bug, that's cool too. So here you have the subsides. There's a little bit of sanding. It might have rough edges. It doesn't. In my case, the newer versions of these kits are all laser cut. So you find some burnt spots or some little bit of fuzz, but nothing significant. So we're going to cement the window posts. Separate. That's fun. Because you got to you got to cut these very, very carefully, not have the wood wander around with your cutting implement, be it an X-Acto, a razor saw, or a scalpel. And they fit in here. Same thing on the ends. It's a different piece of milled wood, fits in the ends. And you have to cut this. You can cut these a little long. So there's your left piece. There's the right piece that goes to the other end of the car. It's pretty straightforward. So it's a raised shoulder. You have to wrap around it. You've got to get it fairly straight. As straight as possible. You center it between the 2 windows and say good enough. You can't do much better, actually. So there they are. These are let's see, it's brown on one end. So those are the window mullion posts. So you have to chop those 2 pieces up and they go in here. Let's see, can we go back? Yeah, so they go in here. We'll come back to those later though. They're actually on step 3. I wasn't planning on doing step 3, but we're going to. Or we're going to do half of step 3. So we'll do 3.5 or 2.5. So there's your parts. They come this way. So here's the first issue. Immediately we run into this when I took it out of the box. One side is cup warped. So which means that's high, and the middle's low. So it's curled. That's just dandy. That makes things really nice. Also, that side is a 32nd thicker than the other side. How that's even possible to do and put into a kit and sell it is beyond me, but it happens, and it did happen because I have the kit in front of you. I don't know if that 32nd thicker matters all that much. I don't know if anybody's actually going to notice it or it's going to upset the roof alignment. We'll find out later. The warp is more concerning. And the first thing I was thinking was, well, we'll glue all these pieces in here with the grain running the other direction, clamp them in, and it might straighten it out a bit. Well, yeah, who knows? So what are these other things? So this is your scribe siding. No, sorry. The red is the scribe siding. These are your pieces for your window posts. You can see there's a raised piece on the edge. This is not the raised shoulder in the instructions that they're talking about. The raised shoulder is this little thing right over here. You can just see it's a little bit of a high point, a little bit of a high point. These all get sliced and diced apart. Yeah, the pink is the raised shoulder, not this piece on the end. There you go. We're going to have fun with that. You know, cutting those apart is just a joy. So you want to get them perfectly straight. This little middle piece here is trash. The ends are outside edges are trash. I don't throw anything away anyhow. I put it in a paper cup. I'll come back to it later and throw it all away later when I don't need it anymore. When I'm 110% sure it's trash. Usually that becomes kindling in December. So glue all these parts in. There's your window mullions. There's the scribe siding. We'll do those parts. So glue those in. These are all glued in. They're all glued in. The warp didn't come out entirely. The mullion posts are glued in. The scribe siding, interestingly enough, is a good 1/16 of an inch too long, and there's not enough. This is a problem because this is a rather unique scribe siding. This is not something you'll hustle over to Northeastern Scale Lumber and buy a piece of 1/32, and it's because it's thinner than 1/32 scribe siding, and they don't have that spacing. And so you have to scramble about in your shop and find something that says, well, that looks sort of close. And we'll show you eventually what sort of close really means. I mean, after you put paint and weathering on it, it'll look like it's pretty close, and maybe it was something that got repaired after it got bumped into a post. Anyhow, still warped, and everything's been put in place and clamped and glued. Well, something close to done. Well, I'm still aggravated about the being shorted on the scribe siding. But that's a good example of what kills building a kit for a lot of people. You got a warped piece, you're short of some parts. This is a time for colorful language, thinking, reviewing instructions, and banging your head against the nearest brick. Somewhere I actually keep a lead brick in my office for just this purpose. It's convenient because it fits in the palm of your hand, but it still has all the weight that you need to really bang yourself in the head with. You have to really consider what these constructions are. You read them through 14 times, and you look at the parts, you look at the isometric, and then you say, I think I might know what I'm just supposed to do with this piece. And you're probably right, because there's only so many ways you can put these things together. So what you've got in the box to work with will get you towards the end. And that's where I'm stopping this week. Sorry for all the excitement. That's it. We've got questions and screams of anguish. Now's the time for them. Boy, it's awfully quiet.
Martin, is this the situations that you're finding in this kit? Is this unusual for these old kits?
Well, this one's not that old.
Oh, okay.
It's the current owner, as opposed to the Wisconsin or Minnesota or whatever the other address was, where it was back in the 60s and 70s. This is a 20th century version of this kit. It's basically the same kit with the same pieces of wood in it. It's been upgraded a little bit. On some parts are laser cut and milled. I left out the fact that actually those center posts between the windows were also too long. They about half of them were way too long, so they all had to be trimmed down and sand the fit, snap into place with glue, put a clamp on it, and pray over it a lot. It's not that common, but it surprised me a little bit. It happens. I mean, these things do happen. I mean, for all I know, the warping that was due to somebody keeping it in a damp basement for 10 years before I got it. Yeah. But only one side was warped, which I thought, oh, that's interesting. If they were both warped, I could accept that better. They're both in the box, nestled in there side by side or front to back, however it was.
But you said they were different kinds of wood. That's probably why only one worked.
No, they're all basswood.
But they were different thicknesses from different.
Yeah, the thicker one. The thicker one.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what really. That's the real head scratcher.
Martin, did you try to call the manufacturer?
Nope.
Nope.
I'm not going to waste my time with it. And we're just going to build the bloody thing the way it is, because half the time is, a lot of kits that manufacturer dried up and blew away 20 years ago, and you're stuck.
You said this fellow is still in business.
Oh yeah, he is. I'm just not going to bother him. I mean, I've called him in the past and left messages and gotten nowhere.
Oh.
I have bought parts from him in the distant past. I bought a carton of roof stock because I hate making roof in trolley size, because it's the only source I know of that has that size of roof. It's not the same as a regular passenger car. It's narrower. And I thought, here's a golden opportunity while he's just getting set up. When he just got in the company, I called him and said, got any of this laying around? Why would you want that? I said, oh, because I'm willing to throw money at you. That's why. Oh, okay. He could appreciate the money part. And so I bought a box of them, and they're sitting here. A roof is pain to build, particularly the nice hollow roof that you can actually put lighting into and put glazing into, and put like stained glass or something into it if you chose to. I mean, I don't know any other place that you can get this type of roof. So that had value to me.
Martin, thank you so very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Martin, did you have to go online and get the rest of the plans that you needed?
I didn't have to. There is a printed set in the box. But, if you want, it's kind of convenient to go get the PDF and print out. And yeah, there you go. You can go get it and download it. And, I ran it in through Photoshop, turned it into, and then ran it into Adobe Illustrator and chopped it up into individual pieces, mainly to make slides out of it. But it actually makes it kind of handy. You can make it a lot larger on your screen and really ponder it over a appropriate beverage and think about just what the heck does that piece look like? Why is he telling me to do this? And you can look into the future like 5 pages later and say, oh, that's why.
Thank you, Martin.
Hey, Martin, just a comment. I was looking at this after doing that. The roof rounding kit is actually a $6 separate item.
Oh, well, somebody
bought it and put it in the box for you.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll have to open it and use it. I mean, that'll be an adventure because I've never used one. I just do it by eye, and it's like, yeah, that's close. Good. Stop there.
I got one, Martin, if you need it.
No, what, an eye?
No, a whole new roof.
Oh, well, if I mess one up, I think I have 6 of them in the storage tub behind me somewhere on the floor, but I haven't looked in there in about 10 years. So who knows what's in there now? There might be 25 of them in there. They breed in the dark when you're not watching.
Martin, thanks so very much. We really appreciate it.
Well, we'll see you next week, and hopefully I'll have some of this stuff solved or addressed or beaten into submission, whichever appeals to your base or not condition.
Thanks so much, Martin. All right. I did talk to Tom Yorke a minute ago on the telephone, and he is trying to get online with us now. Tom, I don't know whether you've made it yet or not. Not yet. Okay. Let me turn to Chris Course to talk about the My Build that's coming up next week.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah.
I can. Tom, can you just hold on 1 minute and let me go to Chris Course. This won't take but a few minutes, and then I'll get right back to you. Okay. Chris, you want to talk about the upcoming My Build?
Sure, I'll do that. The next My Build is next Wednesday, May 24th. To participate, email your photos to me, railrunner130@hotmail.com. And it's a free-for-all. Whatever you're working on, whatever you found in a garage sale, whatever you think might be interesting, something you found on eBay, please share it. We'd love to see what your current status is, what you're working on. And let's see if I can get this thing to flip. All right, it doesn't want to do that. But there we go. The next My Build in June, however, is a challenge. It's the June Challenge of Water, basically to celebrate summer, and show us your boats, bridges, rivers, lakes, ponds, beaches, whatever you can do to circle in water and a summer theme. So that'll be June 28th. And I put the comma in the wrong place there. But anyway, please send your photos to railrunner130@hotmail.com, and I'll be sure to throw those in there. And especially if you have not participated before, please send us photos of what you're working on. And also, if it is your first time, include a picture of yourself so that we can put your photo on the intro card for you. So that's all I had for tonight. Jim, back to you.
Thanks so much, Chris. I appreciate it. Well, Tom, Mr. Yorke, I will go to you now. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Been looking forward to this.
Well, this will probably be this is a continuation of last week, but it'll be the good continuation. Let's see if I can get okay. All right. This is what we're aiming for. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, I got my new white paint. So I'm going to show you what the first coat of stain looks like. And then this wall is finished. This wall has to have the black stain on it yet. Now you notice I've darkened some of the boards just at random. And then the front has been darkened all the way with a little extra dark on the bottom and a little extra dark where hands would touch or the feet would kick the door. So the first thing we're going to do, if I can find my brush, okay, and get the right color. Well, I need some more water. This was mixed about an hour and a half ago, so it dries a little bit. Let's see what this is like. Okay. Okay. Hmm. Okay, that's really light. And that's all the first coat is. It just stays like that until it's dry. Okay. Now, I'm going to see if I've got it right. Yeah, okay. Okay. Now what the black does is it fills in the cracks. So the cracks stand out more. Okay. And that we've got all right. Okay. Now if I can, let's see. Again, this is not the way to clean your brush. Use soap and water. Okay. This brush is an old, let's see, yeah, can't think of the name of it. It's an old bristle brush. It used to be a lot longer. Now I use it for weathering. That's what happens to brushes after a few years. What I'm going to do is we're going to put the white on the front. Let me see. Some goopy white. Okay. Now this is white from the tube. It's not thinned at all. And what I do is I get most of it off. Let's try to. Let's see. Now what you want to do with this is you stipple it on, but there are certain parts of the building that are going to have more white than others because they're protected from the weather. And that's like in okay, right, like in the top. And we'll put see if I can do. Now the top of the wall is left wood color because nobody can see it. Nobody ever painted it up there. It'd be a waste of white paint. Let's. Now this is the first coat of white. And what you want to do is you want to let some brown show through. Now under this stripe is going to be protected. So that's solid. And try to vary the angle of the brush as you do it. Now what I do once it's stippled like that, I'll just brush it very lightly. But gotta get some color on here. Now there's going to be a second coat of white put on this. This white is an off-white. And it's going to show through a little bit. Okay, I'll see. I won't do the whole wall. I'll just do parts of it. This underneath here is going to be pretty much protected. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. It's hard for me to paint when I'm not looking at it.
Tom, why do you use the off-white and then the regular white?
Because the off-white will show through and it gives more depth to the color
Ah,
or the finish. You actually use more paint on the wiping off than you do on the model. See if I can get.
it's pretty close to dry brushing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment too. It's, I guess, dry stippling.
Yeah.
Now I want to put a lot less on the bottom of the door because that's really where it gets worn. Okay, this is about what we've got right here. Doesn't look like a heck of a lot right now. See, I'm going to lighten up this panel. There's hardly any pigment on. There, okay. Okay, so we've got that panel lightened up. All right, now, well, I've got this going. What we're gonna do here, I'm gonna change a brush to my sable. And now I'm lightening the wood a little bit.
Okay.
After you put the black on, it gets pretty dark. And this just takes a little time to do. And you don't want it even either. Some boards are going to be lighter than others. And that's about what you've got there. There's a slight mistake there, and I can go over that with a little bit of brown later and correct that. But that's what, so that's lightened.
Yeah.
This should be, this is about dry, so I can, so this is the first coat. This is about 5 coats of brown and 1 coat of black. And then I've got the white on it. And that's the same over here, but I haven't put the white on it yet. Now, and it usually takes me longer to do this than what I'm doing right now. It's just about there. That sort of evens it out.
Yeah.
Now, when that gets a decal on it, of course, it'll look a lot nicer. Let me see if I can do the door. Now, the top of the door is going to get a little more white on it because it's in a protected area. Underneath. See, that's about what we've got right there.
It's looking awfully good.
And let's see.
Now, what will you do next week for us?
Well, next week, let's see. Next week we're going to do the roof.
Okay,
But what I want to do this week is to put the first coat of the gray on,
okay.
which is a big coat. Okay. Now you can get concrete color, but I mix my own.
Did you pre-spray that also with the white
Oh yes.
rattle can? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Could have been sprayed a little bit heavier, but it's okay. You see, AK and Woodland Scenics make gray concrete color. Now I just put that on. And I wipe it down just a little bit. Okay, I can just. Now this is a good part to practice on because it's inside the building and doesn't show. So you can try your brown on there, try the concrete on there, no problem. Okay, what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna try and spray. Just a tiny bit. And the water will make the paint run. Just use a very little bit of water. And it'll make a speckled finish.
Uh-huh.
And we can go back into this next week and I can show you how to highlight the cracks.
That's a neat trick.
But use very little water, just a tiny bit. Otherwise you'll wash it off. And it just sort of blends it together.
Yeah. Huh.
You can see it running down.
I'll be darned.
Now I'll keep it flat and let it dry.
Anybody have any questions for Tom?
Yes, Tom, earlier when you were mentioning about the proper way to wash brushes, would using something like Master's brush cleaner work the same as soapy water? If you're using water with it?
I haven't used that. I've all my life used soap and water. But I mean, the main point is to keep it clean, and especially around the ferrule, which is between the bristles and the metal. Right. The paint will collect there and it'll get thick.
I always try not to let my paint get up to the furl if I can.
Well, stain is going to do it.
Yeah, yeah, it will.
So what I do is I'll wet my hand. I'll put just a drop of soap and I'll just scrub it like that.
Mhm.
And do that about twice.
All right, thank you.
And rinse it off and then keep it nice and nice and straight. But never store it like that in a glass of water because it'll turn out like that. And you will never be able to straighten it.
All right, thank you.
It's an instant weathering brush.
Well, look forward to seeing you next week, sir. Thank you so very much.
Okay.
Well, now I want to turn to Tom Farrell, who is scratch building his layout. And now tonight, you're going to even see him locate one of his dioramas on that new layout. Tom, welcome.
Thank you for having me again, and got 3 things on this evening, and appreciate you featuring me. Let me switch here to the screen. Okay, everybody see that? Everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Great. Well, this is a photograph of what I call McCoy's camp. It's a hobo camp, an abandoned rail car, an abandoned line. I'll show you how I installed that this evening. Just going to jump right in. I'm going to show you a new technique for painting brick that I hadn't seen before. So for part of my Brady's Bend, which I'm calling that section of the layout, named after a hardscrabble town north of Pittsburgh, I need some building flats. So I chose a design preservation model available from Woodland Scenics now, their O-scale modular wall system. Maybe a lot of you are familiar with that. They offer this in N scale and HO. Basically, it consists of 9 different wall sections. This evening for this particular building, I'll be using a blank wall, that center rectangular window, and then a cornice up top. So my bill of materials is there, 2 blank walls, 6 rectangular windows, 2 cornice pieces. The tools are simple, just some of my pliers to cut the screws, some testers, plastic cement, and a coarse piece of sandpaper. This is the design preservation model pieces. On the left is the mock-up. So you can see there's 6 window pieces and 2 all brick pieces. On the right is how I began the construction of the building front. See these center pieces, they cover up the gap that runs from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock up the middle of the model. And then on the ends are some finished brick pieces as well. Makes for a really effective brick building. Well, this is the new trick. I saw this at Lowe's. It's a self-explanatory. It's a natural rust indoor-outdoor finishing system. And I thought brick is some brick looks pretty close to rust. Let me see what this looks like on my building flat. So the first thing I did is on the left is I spray painted it on in 4 different directions to make sure I got all the nooks and crannies. Then I let it dry overnight. And then the other top coat is a sort of an acrylic water-based type material. They give you this sponge brush. You put it on there and then you wipe it off. I use paper towels. So you see on the left photograph, on the right is where I removed it with a paper towel, and on the left is how I saturated it with the sponge brush. And then the right photograph shows finished brick. I think it came off pretty well. It looks like brick to me. On the left photograph, I added weathering chalks and weathered it up black. I used black chalk and white chalk and some brown chalk. And on the right is the finished, well, nearly finished building front. Shows you the difference that lighting makes. I photographed one in the garage and one in my train room. The one on the right is in the train room. So that's what it'll actually look like. The windows are simply tediously painted green. They're built in. So all that's necessary is to put in the window dressing and glass. But it's a neat trick. American accents comes in a little box, gives you plastic gloves, gives you the sponge brush, the spray paint, and then the top coat. Pretty neat technique. That's a lifetime supply of painting brick, I have to tell you. Any questions on that one? Okay. This Sanford and Son salvage, I said on my last presentation, I would show you some highlights, close-ups, and details. That's the overall model so far, or scene, Brady's Bend. That's McCoy's camp to the left. More design preservations, model modular building, just with a base coat up front there. The DPM kit that I just did snuck in the middle there before weathering in the green windows. But I wanted to show you some of the details of this Sanford and Son. That's the monster board concrete block wall. That's laser cut wood, simply sprayed with a primer and then weathered with chalk and some acrylics. And then the signage is all taken from Google searches for 1920, 1930 signs, and then simply brought into PowerPoint, printed out, cut out, glued onto the wall, and then rusted in the case of the ones on the left. And then the two billboards are just framed with 1x6, 1x4 actually, 1x4 material. In our earlier show, I showed you the drainage. It's nothing more than a spent pen, plastic pen, cut on my saw, enameled, acrylic, chalked, and then super glued onto the wall. Up above is the fence. I think I went over that last time. That's a nice close-up though. This is my finished block wall. I defy you to see that that was made of 3 pieces. That's because I diligently took these 3 square rectangles and in a puzzle-like form, cut them out and integrated it so that you really can't see the seam. And then I hit it with a base color of gray. Then I hit some highlights on, get some variation in those blocks, some grays and some browns. Then I hit it with a green chalk. And then I added some moss and things. Pretty spectacular looking wall. Below is just foliage. sidewalk sale today. This is the details that make the scene come alive. People make the scene come alive. Giving them something to do makes them come alive. Gives an excuse to put cars with nobody sitting in them because they're theoretically at the sidewalk sale. These pieces were all found at a online for 1/48 scale dollhouse furniture. And they come molded in a single brown color. And I simply painted them up. Including everything you see there came from a dollhouse furniture supplier online. I don't happen to remember the company, but and I just painted them one at a time. Rusted up the tubs and the bathroom stuff, and makes for a neat little scene. Some close-ups of that building. You know, if your modeling can stand up to 4 or 5 times the magnification, I think you've achieved success. Guy on the right's not interested in the sidewalk sale. Looks like he has another hobby. He's up high. This is the side of the building. You can't really see this. Sometimes when we model things, you put in detail that nobody will ever see. I had to stand on my head to take this photograph. It's on the side of the building and the details there. This is McCoy Camp. I believe Daniel McCoy, my Penn State College roommate, may be listening this evening. This is built to torment him. This is how I start my models. I take a piece of plywood, aircraft grade plywood, and build a little mini diorama. So this is actually hand laid track with Grant line plates, and it looks like I used just some random rail, micro engineering rail in this case. Then I just painted it, rusted it, set that aside. Then I've always wanted to build a abandoned or a freight car. Lurking underneath this frame is a Bachmann undercarriage. I've used these before, and gives you a real jump start, so you don't have to build that from scratch. Then this is scale lumber. I wasn't sure of the dimensions of this wood, so I called my go-to guy, Al Judy. He told me these were 2x6s, and away I went. I pre-weathered all the material in advance and then cut it up and put it on there. There it is further along. It's just scrap wood, really. I use my technique to score it. I have an X-Acto knife with a scoring tool on it, so I scribe that. Then I dry brushed a turquoise paint on there. Well, first I stained everything with that black alcohol wash. If you notice, the floor of the rail car is a brown because theoretically the outside of the car would see more weathering than the inside. So a little detail here, the inside of the car is washed with the alcohol brown, and it's just starting to turn gray. Where the old rail car, as the paint wore off and it got weathered, you got the graying. This is the back of the diorama. Same technique. My go-to fences are 4x4 uprights, 2x6 running horizontally, and then vertically are 1x6s on an 8-foot span. which is 2 inches in those scale. Again, they're all stained individually, randomly, so we get variation in color. Here's the scene developing. The theory is that that shack on the left was made from the pirated materials from the old rail car. So the hobos wanted a place to live, so they pried wood off the rail car to build this shack, and then scrounged piece of corrugated material. And everything to the left came from the rail car, is the theory. Overall, it's missing something. Now I want to show you what a difference adding figures. A lot of people build models, dioramas, and don't go to the trouble of putting in scale figures. The scene literally comes alive when you put people in there. Now all of a sudden your eyes wandering, looking at all the people. And guy 12 o'clock in front of the fire, you know, he's about ready to fall over. He's trying to hold something up, hold himself up, but there's nothing to hold up. Guy at 10 o'clock is passed out. A couple hobos just talking to one another. Dog chasing rabbits to the right. I mean, literally jumps when you put the people in place. These are all artista figures. They're O-scale, pewter, pre-painted figures. You can buy them unpainted or painted. These happen to be painted. I got enough to do without worrying about having to paint my figures. It's a close-up of the fire. My very first show with Jim Kello, he asked me to do a quick little thing on how to build that fire. It's basically just little scraps of wood that are painted red, orange, yellow, and black. And then just a cotton ball that's super glued in there with a very thin super glue, and then a little cotton pulled up and added to give you the idea that it's on fire. A lot of people put in blinking LEDs, make it look like it's on fire. I'm not that ambitious yet. See my dog chasing 2 rabbits. Neat little scene. That's a nice close-up of that abandoned rail car. See the scoring of the wood adds a nice, it's a simple dimension you can add to your modeling, is to score that wood. Again, the technique is simple. Everything gets a black alcohol wash and then dry brush of a turquoise of some kind. I think that's actually Penn Central green. Signature signs in the back, just pulled off a PowerPoint, pulled off a Google PowerPoint, and glued on there with Elmer's glue, white glue. This is the installation of the diorama right on the beginning of Brady's Bend. My layout is sitting on a very robust framework, as you might recall from one of my earlier presentations. And then 2-inch foam covers the entire layout. Just take my razor saw and, well, first with a black magic marker, I trace the perimeter of McCoy's camp on the foam. Then I cut with a razor saw the perimeter to the approximate depth of my aircraft grade plywood. Then I cut horizontal pieces across and then pried it out with a putty knife, which wasn't easy actually, but it went pretty fast. It made a mess as usual. The one thing about pink foam is it makes a mess when you cut it. There it is installed. I defy you to see that it's sitting on plywood. You'll see a little later. This is an early photo. It's right in there. There's the outhouse. appropriately named McCoy Camp. Such an honor. That was a joke. And there's the overview of finished scene with the little pine tree I put in there, the outhouse I scratch built, and Sanford Sun in the background. Those background buildings to the left are that's temporary, the one on the left for the photograph, the orange brick one, and the Tristan Brothers, or other building is, I don't have the side on it yet. So there it is in steep colors. And that's it.
That's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
It really is. You outdid yourself.
Thank you.
And that hobo fire is fantastic.
My first presentation with you, Jim. Thank you. That was the hook that got me on the line with you. Now it's 2 or 3 hours of power play every week.
Hey, at least you're building a layout.
You're making me move it along. That's the positive thing.
Thanks so much, Tom.
Yeah.
Well, now I want to introduce you to Mike Tylick. Mike is another fantastic modeler here to talk about his layout and track plan. Mike, welcome. You're muted, sir.
I thought you were controlling the muting, but I guess I said
I have enough trouble controlling mine, Mike.
now I'm unmuted. So hi, thank you for having me. And I guess I'll have to talk about my track plan. I hope you have some pictures to show because that's what I was counting on.
Yes, we do. That you sent us.
I'll tell you what, why don't you put a picture up and I can talk and you can ask questions and we'll read it from there.
Phil, can you do that, please?
That's good. I look a little washed out. I notice, see, I have mixed lighting. One's an incandescent and one's a photo light, and I look very ghastly, don't I?
You look fine.
Okay, well, this isn't my track plan, but I ended up moving
Did you
by.
see how I honored you this evening?
I'm sorry? Okay, well, here's the track plan.
I am.
Okay, there's the
He's
track
a
plan.
very, very famous modeler, but that was
Well, this nice plan was drawn by Kalmbach. A few years ago, Lou Sassy came over and took pictures of the layout, and I got this nifty drawing of the plan. And I ended up not having I do have a lot of room, but I figure I'm never going to fill it up. So I built a small switching layout. Seems like everything I built is some variation on that time saver. You have a runaround and you have tracks going in both directions. And it basically goes from one town to the other. I don't know. Can you see my cursor on here? What? I guess not. So
No, we can't.
okay, well, I'll just talk about it. But essentially what I did was this even though I never operate, this was planned so I could operate if I ever wanted to. And basically, if you look at the upper left, there's hidden track. It ducks under some factories, under a walkway, right in there. And I could hide a short train in there, and it comes out into the town of Marshfield Hills, which is where I live. And then on the other end, on the lower right, there's another hidden track behind the sand pit, and supposedly 2 trains could meet each other. And that's actually in Situate. Kind of in the middle is the North River. And it's kind of based on a real scene, but it doesn't look like it. Years ago, there was a New Haven branch that ran on this whole thing. There actually was a railroad that went through Old Colony, although it was standard gauge. And the hurricane, I think of 28, wiped out the bridge. Now that absolutely delighted the New Haven because they were able to close up a line that wasn't making any money. So I put the bridge back in and built it, and I have the town of Marshfield. Now I'll give you an idea from the major plan. You see the big drawing, by the way, that's my Marshfield and Old Colony logo. And I noticed after I made it, no one's pointed out the typing error. Look at the word field. You know, I comes before E except after C, but it looks like somehow I did that and did that wrong, but no one's ever noticed it. But that's a copy of the Edaville Railroad, which is not far from me. The Edaville's pretty well gone now. And Marshfield, Old Colony, the Old Colony was much of the New Haven system was eastern between Boston and Providence and down through Massachusetts, South Shore and the Cape and Rhode Island was at one time the Old Colony Railroad. And they had, if you can see from the map, they had quite an extensive network of track. A lot of that's still there. Years and years ago, long before I ever dreamt I'd live here, John Armstrong did a track plan of using this real place as a layout. And I took a little part of it. If you go up to the inset, that's my little layout. And the red part's what I'm actually building. Now, when I say building, I tend to make a map and find real places and connect them. Then I pay very little attention to what's really there. You know, and I like modeling layouts that railroads that weren't there, because then nobody can say you did this wrong, you did this right. But it's something that maybe could be, and it does follow along the shore. I live in Marshfield, which is kind of in the middle there. And I don't live far from the ocean, and I've always been an inlander, so this was a chance to try to build a sea railroad. And that's that part of it. Maybe we can go to the extension, and I'll tell you that. Talk about that. This is my extension and my friend Paul. Now, one day my friend Paul showed up with that table and said, I built you an extension. So they wanted me to build the layout. I'm working on it now. It's slowly getting stuff done. Probably sceneries, rough sceneries in most of it, but the first 2 feet to the right are done. But this is my little extension, and this becomes the town of, I call it Green Harbor. That's another part of Marshfield. And again, if you look up top, there's a hidden track. So the hidden track now, that was the hidden track, which is at the upper right, that becomes like, if I wanted to really operate, that could be a distance time. I could put a train there and go do something else, and 10 minutes later, the train gets to the other town. But then there's another track in back, and that goes on to the rest of the world. I think it's a good idea to do that. I did not have enough room to put everything in because of runaround space. So the only way I could figure out to run around the track is to put a turntable in. I've seen some of my other people do that with transfer tables, and it's the first time I've ever built a turntable, and it's just a Walters turntable. One of the nice things about 0-30 is you can use HO track, so it's a Walters HO turntable, you know, and the stuff is so small in 0-30 that you can run trains on that. There's a little run around. There's going to be some industries. The long track where it's up in the top is going to be an ice house, and there's a couple other buildings. A friend of mine, Jim Kirkin, gave me a neat idea for the front. I'm going to put a cutaway ferry. I think somewhere there's a picture of a cutaway lumberyard, but there's going to be a ferry slip, and I have room for about a 1-car ferry, which is kind of ridiculous. So I said, why not cut it in half? And here's I didn't do this on purpose, but there's my cutaway lumberyard. And I've always liked cutaways. Lynn Westcott, the 101 track plans, had lots of drawings of things that just was sliced. And it's a bit photographic. It's a bit comes from art things where sooner or later you run out of canvas. Sooner or later you run out of frame. Sooner or later you run out of table. Now you run out in the back and you do all these tricks to try to make it look small further away. You run out in front, so you just slice it. You know, and I kind of like the idea of just showing something sliced off it. It does have several advantages. One advantage is you could build a really detailed interior and someone could actually see it. Like when I first started in HO scale, I built this signal tower, and I put all this stuff inside, had removable roof. I think I pulled the roof off once, so I stopped making real detailed interiors, went to a simple ones, but it's a good way to do this. And this is the old shed lumber yards. I've always loved lumber yards and coal yards and ice houses, and gas stations, and that's sort of that picture. And that's kind of my track plan. And this is where I live by the ocean. Now, there's a couple of things. The picture on the right is just kind of a classic ocean picture. It's a boat going on the dock. One thing I found with ON30, you can't see it in this picture, that's really kind of interesting, is there's dual gauge track on the dock. Now, if you think about it, O-scale standard gauge is actually 5 feet wide. It's a little bit wider than it should be. And the 2.5 is 2.5 feet wide. So the third rail comes right in the middle. It looks a bit like Lionel 3 rail laid with scale rail. Because usually you see narrow gauge track, and the rail is offset to one side. This goes right down the center. The crane is kind of interesting. I had an HO crane I forget who made it. It's a plastic kit, and I built a few of them, and I couldn't find an O-scale one, so I built my own out of Plastrock and found some gears, and it sort of looks like it works, but it's a nice little pillow crane to have in the dock. One nice thing I learned about the docks are when you go to the ocean is that there's tide. You notice I did put some tide lines because the tide will go up and down, and little docks and little things tie boats, and they're made so the posts can ride up and down the causeway. Now, where I live, there are these big causeways. You can see it in the other picture too. The causeways are actually gravel from my back patio, and it's kind of jagged rock. And I learned two things about building a riprap wall. One thing is they use jagged rock because the jagged rock holds in place. If they use rounded rock, like in the ocean, you can go by the ocean and find these incredibly huge rounded rocks. Everything's round that comes out of the ocean. So they must have blasted these, but the jagged rock stays in place. And some of these rocks, you wonder how they ever got them there in the 19th century. It looks almost like somewhat like building Stonehenge. Now, I wanted to talk, since we have the picture, I want to talk a little bit about that tower. And everybody that builds a seacoast builds a lighthouse. And lighthouses are neat, but, it just seemed too cliche to me. Now, in Marshfield, they have these artillery towers. This one is still standing, and they were, I guess, 3 of them built around the Boston area back for World War II. And they stand up. They're supposed to be able to withstand the direct hit from a battleship. There's a lot of surprising amount about that on the internet. And those were to help coastal batteries. Now, a part of the story that's interesting is during World War II, you remember all the panics, the concerns about invasion, and they started building all these coastal batteries along the Atlantic Ocean because of the Germans were going to come invade us. Now, somewhere in the end of 1942, they realized the Germans didn't have a navy. So they were building all this. They built all these emplacements for a navy that didn't exist, and a lot of them are still there in places. And that's my artillery tower. That one's still there, and that's used by. Actually, I think it's a summer house. There's a lock on the door, and there's like a mailbox. It's a little area. The building in front is just a bar mill shack, and I named it after my stepdaughter Joanne. Joanne's Chicken Shack, and that's a little scene on my layout. That if you think my skies are wonderful, they're real skies. I don't. I have backdrops. They're minimal. They're spray painted clouds, but I like using real. When I do photographs, I use Photoshop and I drop in real skies. I have files and files, maybe several hundred skies now I use, and put them in the picture.
Fantastic. Looks great.
Same thing with the smoke. The smoke is real smoke.
Yeah.
It's taken from pictures from Google Images. I had better luck with Bing Images than Google Images, but those are smoke from real trains, real locomotives, and I cut them out and I put them in. I make them a little bit transparent. A friend of mine, Malcolm Houck, does the same thing with an airbrush on Photoshop. He uses this spray airbrush and builds it up gradually, but that seems to work pretty well for me. And same thing, fake sky. This is one of these pictures I can't get anymore because when I built my layout in 3 sections in the dirty part of the cellar. Then when the section was done, I moved it into the clean part of the cellar where it is now, and then I have a finished room. And this is where I'm sitting now. There's a piece of table in the way. You can't get there at all anymore. And stone buildings, an old Railway Design Associate kits from my friend, and he did very nice stonework. He cut that all. It's all injection molded. He cut that all in steel plates with a Bridgeport. It was really pretty incredible job. The mill in the back is something that actually, it's a fictitious mill, but Marshfield, for some reason, was a center of the cut nail business. I believe a person who lived there developed a machine to make nails and put a lot of blacksmiths out of business. And as you can see, it's an ON30 layout, hand laid track, and that's basically, I don't know if I have much more to say, but I hope you guys like my little layout. And here I am. That's a G scale, F scale Bachmann Cheyenne back.
Like it very much. I look forward to next week and what you're going to talk about.
Okay, you're going to have to tell me something to talk. Tell me something to talk about, and I'll say something about it.
Whatever you want.
That's what I don't want to hear. I'd like
whatever you want, Mike.
But I want. Why don't we talk about cars?
Let's talk about cars.
Okay, fine. I like it.
See you next week.
And
Thank you so much.
the wheels, right, Jim? But thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, now I want to introduce somebody that hasn't been here before, but I think you're going to enjoy. Patrick Cazzillo, who is the youth director for the Lionel Collectors Club of America. Michael, I think that's wonderful that an association is recognizing the youth. As far as I know, it's the only association out there that has a youth director. So congratulations, and I wish you the best in accomplishing that mission. But Michael's here tonight to talk to us about using magnets and lighting of passenger cars. So Michael, welcome.
Well, my name is Patrick.
I'm sorry, Patrick.
It's okay.
I've got it written down. I'm somebody else.
That's sorry. Okay. My name is Patrick Cazzillo. And I do a little scratch building. I'm more of a Lionel collector guy. I've got Lionels from the 1920s all the way to modern stuff. And I have a high rail layout with Lionel Fast Track. And I kind of, do whatever I kind of want to do. But every once in a while, I pick up a model to scratch build. And this is one of my recent ones. There's a guy, it's a LaBelle kit. I think it's a LaBelle kit. Maybe it's a Walters. I think it was the Walters one. It's got the big windows in it. It was that rail fanning car. And the guy's name on the front of his name is Dale Ward. And I'm from Indiana, up near Chicago. I'm about a half hour from Chicago. And Dale Ward, really quick, he has a huge railroad museum. He passed away last May. But he has one of the largest collections in Indiana open to public railroad stuff. So ever find yourself in old Monon, Indiana, take a stop in there and see what Dale's got in that place. It's crazy what he has. But anyway, so the topic was railroad lighting magnets. So everyone, we always have a car like this. You build it up, and there's always a little issue. How do you get the lighting in there? And normally, you stick the lighting in the roof, and you do the interior, but you want people to be able to see your interior as well. So how do you do that without having wires everywhere and making just a big old mess? So a friend of mine, I did not develop this, but a friend of mine from Nashville, Tennessee, he showed me this project. He was a jeweler, and he originally came up with this, and I kind of perfected it, I guess, or at least maybe I think I did. but I stuck little magnets inside your standard car. But what I did was I used the magnet. I 3D printed. I have a 3D printer, and I 3D printed a little hole in this plastic rectangular tower to be able to squeeze the magnet down in there. I very difficult. It was very difficult to solder a wire to that magnet, but I got it to work. And I just used screws on. I put the light system, the light strip on the top of the roof here, and I just used little screws like that, and that way I can adjust it up or down when you're first putting it on. So it serves two purposes. One, it snaps the roof in there, so it holds it in place. Okay. And then the other purpose is it lights it up, obviously. And then when you want to show someone the interior, you just pick the roof up and you can look into it. No wires and no mess. Okay. The magnets I use, I just went to Menards, if anyone's familiar with Menards, called MagnaCraft magnets. And it just comes in a tube like this. It's got a tube inside of a tube. And I bought a container of 30, and the diameter is like 0.375 inches, and the length is 0.125 inches. I could put that in the chat if you're interested. It's a small magnet, or any magnet you want would work. But but what works for me is they're the rare earth metal magnets. These are super duper strong, and they'll stick to just about anything. But yeah, this really comes in handy, and it's a lot neater. There's no wires inside the car, you can see. Okay, all the wires are underneath, and all I did was I just ran the wires underneath, and I hooked it to, I have a 3-rail track system, but I hook it to the center pickups, and you run the wires under the car. You can kind of see them there, how I did it. I used black on black and just made it all kind of work real nice. This is one of my latest ones. Another one of my latest ones is this one here too. I built another car. It's a 21-inch passenger car called the Pullman Voyager. But I did the same thing with this one too. It's a much longer car. I did the same thing. This one's a little bit earlier variation I did when I was still experimenting with this. And I see I stuck the magnet in the roof, and it is proved that this was not, it works, but it was a pain in the butt because you had to carve out the roof hole. It was just a pain in the butt. And then on the inside of the car, this one came out really nice, actually, the inside of this one. But right over here by the classic lady in the shower, you could see how I did like a flat metal top on that one. I still 3D printed the tower. I just painted it Pullman green. But I used a flat piece of metal on the top. You could do it like that. It works. But you really had to be careful and really get your sizing correct, where the other one I did, the Dale Ward car, I used a screw this time. And if it wasn't exactly right, I just adjusted it up and down, and it made it work. So it takes a little trial and error. I mean, at least with this one, it came out pretty nice. And if you don't have a 3D printer, you could just take some drill bits in a tall piece of basswood and just drill it out, kind of all it out. Just run a hole all the way straight down the center, and then run a wire through that, and solder it to that magnet. Soldering the magnet, what I actually used was I put a magnet. I tried this, and my magnet obviously kept getting stuck to my solder pencil tip. What I ended up doing was I just took a pair of pliers, and I just hooked the magnet in there, and I hurled it up, and you might almost need 2 people for this just to kind of get the solder on blopped, and then get the wire in there fast enough. But I was able to do it myself. It took me a couple times to get it just right, but it works once you kind of get it you got to play with it a little bit. But like anything in this hobby, it's all trial and error to get it right. So I guess that's kind of it. Anyone have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Did you use incandescent lighting or LED lighting?
I use incandescent lighting because I would rather use LED lighting. But the problem was I bought a collection out, and I have a ton of these plastic K-line strips for all the lights on it. So at some point, I don't run these cars all the time. I rarely run them. So, I mean, you know, you can adjust this to LED lighting too, as long as you have the right, the little circuit board and the capacitor for it and stuff. You can adjust this. This will work with LED lighting as well. So it's versatile like that. But no, I got a whole slew of these things, so I use incandescent lighting since I got a ton of them.
Thank you.
The magnets that you put them in all four corners of the car?
You could. That's a little. I thought that was a little overkill. I just did two, kind of one on each end of the car. You see how I just did, like in this one here. I've got one on this end right here. This is a trash can down here. It's kind of hard to see it. And then on the other end, I got one on the opposite. So I just did two opposites. You could put four in there. I've seen my buddy, my jeweler friend in Nashville. He did it. He used to do four, and he only would power two. You could if you want. I felt that two was just strong enough that I was still experimenting with this. But one is positive and one is negative. So that's obviously that was probably the next question.
Hey, Patrick, this is Phil. Just a comment. Without a 3D printer, it probably would be pretty easy. You can buy an evergreen tube that's got a 0.38 interior diameter, and then put another smaller tube inside of it, make a stack of two tubes, and just glue the magnet down on the top, and you could build that with two pieces of tubing. So if you don't have a 3D printer, that's a lot cheaper than a 3D printer, probably to buy a couple of pieces of tube.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But even if you want to get into 3D printing, the prices have gone down on them significantly. And a lot of that stuff is already like pre-made for the most part. Or I actually have the file for it. If you want it, I could print it. But the problem is all these cars are all different sizes and heights. But I have the one I made here is just about the right height for these Walthers kits. And that screw there you can adjust it up and down and make it work just enough. So a little wood screw I stuck in there. But yeah, the tubing would work just as well. So I mean, whatever works for you. But just the fact that the magnets kind of limit all the wire mess and little plugs, and you don't have to like try to build a little compartment just to shove all the wire in. It just makes it a little bit neater, and it gives you more build space essentially for stuff.
I think it's a great idea. I had never thought of it, but I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's magna lighting, like on Lionel, magna traction, but magna lighting.
Absolutely.
So,
well, Patrick, thank you very much again for being here this evening and sharing this with us. And I wish you the best of luck with your youth program for the LCCA. By the way, I tried to get Patrick to do that for us on our show, and he said, "No, I've got too much on my plate. I can't do two of them." So, if that ever changes, keep us in mind.
I definitely will. I also I'm a high school teacher, and I work night school, and it's kind of million things on my plate. End of the school year, I got like 3 weeks of school left, and I'm ready to check out here. So,
well, thanks so very much. And anytime you want to come back with another tip, just let me know.
I will. I'll let you know.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Well, now our next presenter is Mark Poggendorf, who owns a hobby shop in California. And Mark is here to talk with us about the hobby shops and what the status of them are and how we're doing. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And I'm sorry that this is so late, but boy, this was just a full show tonight. And I apologize for it to be so late.
That's all right. It's not quite my bedtime, so we're okay. I actually have a guest tonight, Mike from Spring Creek Model Trains. Is he already logged in?
Yeah, we're right here, Mark. So it's actually myself and my brother Jeff is here. So
how you guys doing?
Good.
Very good.
Good. Okay. Well, let's dive right in then. So Mike, tell us about your store. What do you guys do, products and your services?
Yeah.
Kind of this is your shameless plug moment.
Sure. So yeah, Spring Creek Model Trains. We're located in Edholm, Nebraska. So our store here started by our parents in 2000. So we're going on our 23rd year right now, or in our 23rd year. So we primarily started traveling with train shows all over the country. So we travel east, west, north, south, pretty much all the big shows every year. We're located there with a booth. We have a brick and mortar store here in our hometown. It's a town of 800 people, I guess now.
Yeah.
So we're located here in an old grocery store. We've got about 3,500 square feet of a brick and mortar store, plus a basement that we utilize as our warehouse. We have an online presence, springcreekmodeltrains.com. You can check that out. So the website started probably 5-6 years ago when Jeff moved back. He got into that, got that built for the store for all of us. And as you can imagine, a store that's been around for 20 some years before the website starts, there's a heavy backload of inventory. So we are working through that, just actively getting through a lot of our HO scale stuff. So I think right now it's working on a lot of our older Intermountain, right? So that's going up on our website right now. We do our own train show. Every other year we host our own train show here in Deschler. So it's actually coming up our 5th.
Yes, 5th.
Yeah, it's our 5th show that we've hosted here in Deschler. It's coming up this July 8th and 9th. We host that. We double the size of our town within the weekend with people from all over the country. I think the last time we had a show, we had people from 17 different states that showed up and come check it out. It's a unique show. We get a lot of manufacturers. So we've got a long list of manufacturers, all different sizes of manufacturers too. And then we get a lot of specialty manufacturers, like the smaller ones that are just starting out. They'll come and check us out or check the show out, and we like to support with that. So anyway, those are, I guess, my quick speech there, Mark. So.
Oh yeah. So what are some of the major brands and products you guys carry?
Well, we carry all the major brands. Not everything, of course, like Mike said, is listed on the website yet because we're still backlogging in everything. But yeah, we carry scale trains all the way to, of course, Athearn and Wathers,
Atlas, right.
all the big ones. We also are on our train show circuit side. We're an exclusive train show dealer for Exact Rail, so we do have a bit of Exact Rail around every once in a while. In N scale, we carry everybody there as well. Pretty much all the same brands. We're working on a couple others. We are hooked up with Aurora Miniatures, which is one of the newer manufacturers out there. So we'll be ramping up those inventory items, and we're working on trying to become a Prairie Shadows dealer. And then of course we're in communications with Roca Miniatures, but so far he's reluctant. So
hopefully we'll have some more exciting stuff this summer during the trade show. And it's one of the things that our dad founded the store on is really, we grew up going to hobby stores, right? When we went on vacations, it was one of the places what we remember going to, right? Going to Caboose, I can remember to go to the stores in Kansas City. I can't remember their names. I mean, I was too young, I guess, at that point, but going to a store and be able to put your hands on that product before you had to buy it, right? And be able to look at it, twist it around, right? I mean, we never opened them up out of the box, but at least you could see it and take a look at it. That's what our dad really believed in when he started this store. It's something that Jeff and I are definitely going to carry on as we continue the store, is being able to be hands-on with the product. And that's why we like to carry as much as what we do. So I mean, like I said, it's 3,500 square feet. That's just full to the rafters. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Our slogan, it really came from customers, is, stop in and say, wow. I mean, we get so many guys that just walk into the front door for the first time and they stop and it's a pause. And then you hear, wow, would have never thought this. Right. So that's kind of fun. So.
Right. And that's something, for a lot of you who don't know, I'm from Nebraska too. So Deschler, Nebraska is not a very big town.
No.
And it's kind of in an obscure location. And you guys have managed to do some amazing things to pull off that kind of a customer base in that remote of a location. So what do you guys do to keep it fresh, keep it going with the store? Because as you know, we're in an age of internet, and a lot of people get lazy, and that's what this whole segment is based on that I'm doing is to get people back into the brick and mortar store. You touched on some key subjects that I was going to ask you about, and you already did it. So, you know, what's something you do to keep your store fresh and keep these guys coming back? Because it is a little bit of trek to your store.
Yeah.
And obviously you're doing it. It's very successful. You know, I've been knowing you guys for years. So the fact that you're pulling this off says a lot.
I appreciate that. So I think the first thing that really in my mind that comes to is the fact that we do travel. We're able to make that customer connection. The fact that we travel all over the country. You know, we have customers that know us, and we know them, right? Just all over. So they're making the phone call to the store, even though they don't trek to our brick and mortar, right? They may come to the brick and mortar once every 5 years, but we've made that connection, and they know that we're here and we do have a store and we do have stock, because they've seen that, because we work hard at doing the social media, putting stuff out there. We're not the best at it, but we keep trying. We keep trying different things. We do.
We just,
I guess,
started a thing with Tony Cook. What, about once a month?
Once a month, kind of a little podcast that goes for 30 minutes. It's just Jeff and I and Tony Cook. We kind of just sit around and talk about trains and things that we've seen. We also do some new arrival videos that Jeff and I have done. You know, neither one of us ever thought in our lives that we would be sitting in front of cameras and talking to folks, right? Or, you know, up there or editing videos or whatever. But we get a good time out of it. We make fun of ourselves, right? There's bloopers at the end, you know, where we're being ourselves. I mean, we're ourselves during the whole video, but you can see a little more behind the scenes on it. So we try to make that personal connection. We try to make that connection that we're model railroaders too. So, you know, we're into this just like the customer is, and make that connection, right? I mean, you get into a lot, Jeff, with going through different things on some of the digital stuff, right? And the Fremo.
Try to,
Talk about that. I mean, you get out on the Fremo circuit.
I got myself involved in Fremo module setups, so I've traveled about 5 shows or shows/setups a year, and just get to hang out with the guys. It's more for me on that. It's just the personal time to model, but it just making those connections. They get to know me, which then gets them interested in our store. And that, not that I'm promoting our store when I'm doing it. They're just asking questions, so I just answer and try to be as genuine as possible. As the big thing. And one of the things we've started doing is really we noticed that certain manufacturers have a lack of customer service, and we try to take the brunt of that on ourselves so that the customer doesn't have to deal with it. We try to take care of the customer, and then we take back the damaged product and deal with the manufacturer ourselves. We seem to get better luck that way, and it just makes it a little smoother. Not that we're always, you know, first in line with Athearn or any of the others, you know, but at least helps.
Yeah, we try that. I think one of the other big things, Mark, before is, you know, Jeff touched on Fremo. We host a Fremo event every year, and it's something we just like. We like seeing the trains. We run the trains, right? We get in there. I'm an N scaler. Jeff's an HO scaler. My dad's an HO scaler. My nephew's an HO scaler. So when we get the setup, right, we get to go down there and we talk with the guys, right? Maybe we get our own stuff out. We get to run with them or whatnot. But we have a setup here in town that happens every year. And it's just a way to, and we promote it, right? And say, hey, come on down, right? We got trains to come watch, check out the store, you know, and we get people to come check that out. And then all of a sudden the buzz starts building for the train show that's in 2 years or whatever. And, you know, people start talking about, okay, I'm coming. And, you know, we got a really good customer in Detroit that he's been telling us, I think for a year now, that, you know, can't wait to meet you. I'm coming to the train show. I'm planning my whole vacation around it.
Oh, that's awesome. That is really good.
Mark, real quick, we have a question from YouTube that was kind of back to a subject you talked about before. Is why would a manufacturer be hesitant distributing to a hobby shop that is successful? So why is it hard to get manufacturers to work with you?
Well, some of them, I think it may be touching on the Roca miniatures where they're being reluctant. And that's just, he's more starting off his business as a direct sell model only. So it's not just us. He's reluctant with everybody at this moment in time. We've been having, we see him out at the train show circuit. So we talk to him every chance we get and just say, hey, we'd really like to carry your product. We can go to, we're trying to promote what we do, which is go to all the train shows. We know there are obviously bigger brick and mortar stores or presences, I should say, maybe not bigger store presences like Lombard and Train World. And
it really,
we just do it a little different. We try to get the car in people's hands, and he gets that part. So we're hoping that one of these days we'll be able to carry his products in store.
We've had a lot of good conversations with him. I mean, it's going to be amazing to see what happens with Roca models as it goes forward, right? Just for our industry in general. I think there's going to be some really cool stuff. I mean, whoever thought we would got those, what are they? I always say it wrong. I think they're safe pack auto racks, if I said that right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Who would have ever thought we would ever see that in model form to the level of quality that we're seeing out of Roca? So what's coming from him, my own opinion is just like, this is going to be cool.
Sure.
And we're having some great conversations with him.
But
but we do that with all the manufacturers. We try all the time, and it's their decision. We have to make it work for us. They have to make it work for them. We're having those conversations with him too, and we'll see what happens. So,
do you think it's a margin issue for them?
Oh,
is it?
always,
let me kind of expand that.
Sure.
So if I start out manufacturing, I'm doing direct sales. I price based on doing direct sales, and one of the challenges with that is you may not leave enough margin in there to pay a distribution channel, i.e. you.
Yep.
And so I'm wondering, is that kind of part of the problem, that because people are starting off with direct sales, they're not building an economic model in their business that allows them to go to distribution?
I think the big challenge is that first effort into it, right? Because you got a huge investment as a manufacturer, and we haven't manufactured, right? We work with a lot of manufacturers, but just that understanding is it looks like the amount of effort, the amount of financial capital they put into it, they got to make those decisions and make sure they're covering that up front. And, that's, we want them to be successful. I mean, that's one of the things, you ever have the chance to talk to our dad, Dave, right? That's one of his biggest things, is he wants manufacturers to be successful, because if they're not, right, that's bad for all of us in the hobby. And we just want to be a part of that if we can find a place with them, and we'll just see how those things work out. But margin is also key. I mean, we've had great conversations with manufacturers that are out there to where the margin wasn't enough for either one of us, and it just doesn't work. But it doesn't mean that we're not rooting them on to make something good happen out there, because who knows what will happen.
Those things might change
2 years from now or whatever. Maybe we can make something happen with them. So but yes, I mean, we all got to be able to, make money and to keep this going, right? That's the way business works. So.
Right. I'm having that same issue right now, actually, with scale trains, because they don't want to open up any more dealers, and they want to, eliminate that and go direct to customer sales.
Yeah.
And we've experienced that with a couple other manufacturers also. And like you said, you just can't get everybody sometimes. And sometimes you just got to move on, and then there'll be a new manufacturer that might give it to me and not you. It just depends on the attitude. But yeah, encouraging everybody to be successful, because this hobby's got to go on. If it doesn't, all of our stuff's going to end up in a landfill someday when we're gone.
Yep.
So
and I think we got to encourage that ability to see the product, right? I mean, yes, I get the world is way more used to product, just hit the button, it shows up on your doorstep. I mean, it happens at my house all the time. But
yeah,
I think in a hobby stance, or a specialized hobby like we are, right, where people really care about what the product looks like and the details and stuff and what you can see and I don't know. There's nothing that stops a brick and mortar. I mean, the brick and mortar can provide all that, right? Plus, you know, the ability to get out there and meet the customers wherever they might be. So I don't know. That's
Yeah.
my thought on it. It's just,
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Now, do you guys offer any service also, like DCC installs, repairs?
We do some minor install work, but we're both pretty not as very skilled as solderers, so we have not got into the deeper.
You're looking at the
install.
repair department tonight, plus a lot of other departments. So it kind of comes down to a time management piece for us. So
we do work with a couple guys.
Yeah,
from some other communities not too far away that do install work for us, but it can take some time because they're busy too. So
yep, we got a lot of guys that do it on nights and weekends kind of stuff. So
okay. So obviously, you know, COVID was heck for everybody. We had a lot of supply chain issues. We had a lot of products that were not offered by manufacturers, everything else. Have you guys noticed that is getting better? The supply chain issues are kind of sorting themselves out and so forth, or are you still experiencing a lot of that?
it did. The electronic side is smoothed out, but it's not what it was before COVID. It's a little more predictable for us, I think, on what we're able to get, especially decoders. We had a lot of trouble during COVID getting certain decoders, which made it really hard with some customers. It's been interesting on the manufacturing side of like rolling stock and engines and stuff. I mean, it was hectic last year, as I felt like everything kind of really broke loose, and then it was all of a sudden it was just dumping on us all. So it became a real struggle there. I don't know. I know we have a lot of different manufacturers. That's something that they can just keeping it smooth for all of us as we take that product in, right? As a retail store or as a customer, right? There's only so much in your budget every month, right? To be able to do something. So
yeah, that's true. When those bills come, it hurts.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just, especially when you get 3 or 4 of them, dump it all at one time on you. But those are things you got to work through and figure out how to get through that. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of smoothed out. I still think track's kind of an issue.
Yeah.
I feel like that, and turnouts, it still seems like a big struggle to get turnouts when you want them and when you need them.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm encouraged with what's happening at Microengineering. We've had some good conversations with the new owners there, but we haven't, I don't know, we're not to the level with Microengineering that we need to be for what we want to be, I guess. I'm also encouraged with what's happening at Wathers. It seems like that's a little more easy to where they're helping us out by keeping themselves stocked. So
yeah, I've noticed that recently. Started going. Well, that's great. Well, is there anything else you want to add about your business? Or I know you guys had at the last show in Denver, I saw some 3D printed grain elevators.
Yeah. So we do. So we've been working with Iowa Scale Engineering on 3D printed. Grain bins with Iowa Scale Engineering and
JP 3D.
Yeah, Jimmy
out of Salina, Kansas.
Yeah.
He started printing concrete elevators to a prototypical 125 feet tall.
Yeah, they're 2 scale, both HO and N scale. He's done some O scale special for customers, but those are pretty awesome. And he's done a terminal setup, right? How big is that terminal setup?
His terminal elevator is 8 feet long.
Yeah, in HO scale. So
it's modeling. It's not quite as long as the one that's in Salina, but it's close.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty
awesome. Are those
awesome.
available on your website?
Not yet. I'm still working with Jimmy on how to get those logistics worked out. Because he does a lot of, I don't know if the word freelance is right, but that's what we use. He does a lot of projects for customers that just want a one-off. So spends a lot of time doing design work. So I don't want to flood him, so to speak.
We work hard with him, and we try to make sure our trailer and our store stocked with those elevators. So I mean, we don't have these. It's a pretty special deal, so we don't have a bunch of them, but we keep working with him and keep him busy on those kind of things. But that's been fun. We're working with another 3D manufacturer out of Ontario, Canada. I can't think of their name. Hamilton. Well, yeah, Yelton Models. But hopefully we're going to be coming together and getting some, I guess, detail parts for the grain bins in a farm scene or even an elevator scene. So we've been working hard with them, and our family's history, right, is in the ag business, ag construction. So we know a lot of that kind of stuff. So we keep trying to track that down. And that's one thing we like to do is try to help bring new things to the market, right? If it's a paint scheme on a car, we try to do that. You know, if it's a new detail part that we can get out there, we try to do that. So,
well, we also carry ABR Model Works.
Yep, ABR Model Works. We've been working with them out of Australia, carrying his detail parts around. So that's been a good relationship.
Right now,
I
it's
hope.
just show.
Yeah, we carry mostly to the show because we don't have a lot of floor space here in the store for it. So we're able to make the table space work out at shows. So definitely be looking that out, and we ship to all that stuff for him here in the United States. So.
U.S. shipper for him.
Yep.
It seems to be a tremendous market for farm modelers, but they model in S scale. Do you all deal with them?
We don't really. We've had a couple younger farm modelers that have come through our store, you know, and they buy up some scenery stuff, woodland scenics, you know, grasses and stuff like that. But we have not gotten into that world. We're always wishing that Edholm or that scale was much closer to HO scale. So
yeah,
because there's a lot of stuff we would love to buy, right? I know Jeff, or I really should say Dad, would have on his layout.
Right. Yes, he would.
If Edholm was closer. So
we need irrigation pivots. You know, I grew up in Gothenburg, Nebraska. So irrigation pivots.
Oh yeah.
It would be really nice.
Yep,
So,
we're we're a hometown of Renke pivots here. So that's our dad built those all over the country. We built we built another one like 3 years ago, and it was like riding a bike getting back on it. So it was pretty crazy.
After 20 years of not touching them.
Yeah, after 20 years.
Oh, wow.
But so we built a few too ourselves, but that's something he's talked a lot about. He's talked with other manufacturers. Who knows? Maybe someday it'll come together and it prices itself out, right? But that'd be pretty cool for a layout.
Yeah,
that would be. I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So, well, does anybody have any questions for these guys?
Well, I've got
You
one.
okay.
You know, your train show that you do every 2 years. What do you do that draws the small manufacturers to it and have people come from all over the states to come to it? What do you do special? Something.
So the following, right? We have the following that's out there that know us from the different trade shows, and the fact that we make it unique every year, right? And
we try to.
Yeah, and we get manufacturers and different layouts that show up every trade show.
So the first year was kind of more marketed like an open house deal.
Yeah.
And we had just a handful of manufacturers, but then the second year we were able to get in contact with Pella Soberg, or second show, I shouldn't say second year, but and he came and did some clinics. So that's what really kind of set it off. Was we were able to get him on one of his travels to the United States, and he wanted to come rail fan the Kyle Railroad, which is not very far from us. So Dad took him out and did that, and then he did some clinics over the show weekend, and that just drew a bunch of people. And then the manufacturers that came that year just have talked about how they really enjoyed it because every conversation they had was meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of times at the show, it's not always a serious modeler they're talking to.
Yeah.
So they feel like they get a lot of good conversations to give them good ideas on what next for their products.
Yep. If you're driving, to come out here to Deschler, you are in the model trains, and the manufacturers are learning that as we set this up. And, this year we have a couple new ones that haven't been. So we're hoping, you know, that it turns out as good. I mean, we're always nervous going into it, but we keep trying different things, different scales, right? Will show up. 2 years ago, right, we had rideable trains. We have a guy here not too far from us that's building rideable trains, and he came and displayed what he was doing. Some of the smaller manufacturers, I think, are using it as a way to get some of their names out. So, you know, and they're wanting to work with us and help us, or want us to work with them to help get their product out there in front of customers. And so, and then we try to bring in layouts. I'm sure we've all, at least I would hope everybody on here has been to train shows, right? And you go through a train show circuit, and then you drive maybe a couple hours to a train show, and you kind of see the same layouts and the same vendors. What we try to do is bring in layouts that are actually coming potentially multiple states away that will come and set up for the weekend. So it gives a chance for guys to see other setups, other ways of doing things, you know, talk to somebody else about how to do a scenery, how to do a setup, right?
Yeah.
So,
and one of our local clubs really kind of took it to heart, because we said, well, we want to do layouts that aren't around. And they said, well, what if we really worked on our layout? And they really put in some hefty work over the last few years, and they are coming this year.
Yep.
They're super excited to come and show off all what they have done and how they have improved. And they're just so happy. And it was great that they took it that way versus you know, we weren't trying to downgrade them. We were just saying, well, we want to bring in layouts that people don't see from around. And
yep, they're super excited though. They're coming. Yeah, that's super exciting to have them, and it's pretty interesting setup right now. We're just starting in on the layout of the building and everything, so it's going to be a packed building. We're actually going to be in four different locations in town. So we actually give out maps. I mean, our town's like 5 blocks long or 6 blocks long, so it's not like it's hard to get places. So we give out maps to everybody so they can drive to different places and check it out. So.
And when is your show this year?
So it's July 8th and 9th. So you can come check it out, drive through. There's hotels within the surrounding area, 20-30 minutes away. There's a bunch of different hotels. We'll have all that. That's actually will be on our website.
Yep. Out
there for everybody to grab. And then we'll be going through lists of the different vendors that will be manufacturers that will be there, different small vendors that will be there, different layouts. We'll be going through all that on Facebook and on our Facebook page, sharing all that. There'll be lists on our website.
Yep.
Just try to promote that.
Okay. Now, is there a separate website for the show, or is it just on your Spring Creek website?
It'll be right on the homepage on Spring Creek.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So it's easy for everybody to find.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. If you get a chance to go out there, do it. That's for sure.
Appreciate it.
Just a question for you. Do you deal with Rapido trains and other Canadian manufacturers from Southern Ontario?
We do. So
good.
Yeah,
good.
We do. We've dealt with Rapido for a lot of years now.
Good.
We've done a couple custom runs with them. Our last two we did in HO scale was their plastics hopper. What was that? The 5820?
Yeah, 5820.
The 5820 plastics hopper. There was
experimental blue.
Yep, experimental blue Procore scheme that was on one car, one road number that they were able to find stuff on, and we worked with them and made that car happen. Then we also did on their last run of auto flood, right? It's auto flood. Yeah, the auto flood coal cars, both scales, HO and N scale. We did a custom run with them. We got another one that's in the works, the Iowa Interstate M420. So Rapido's got the M420 that's out there, and that was, I don't know, came down from a couple different places, but ended up at Iowa Interstate. And so we're doing all three numbers. Yeah. Exclusive run with them. And we've gotten to meet Jason and several of the team members, Jordan, Matt, all over different places across the country. So
that's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, does anybody else have any more questions? I think you guys have been great tonight. You've answered so many questions, and I think a lot more people now know you exist and know you're around.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the invite.
I'm really impressed. If you'd like to come back and promote your train show, just let us know, and we'll make sure that we've got time for you, because what you're doing sounds exactly like what I've heard Mark talk about before. You've got to get out to the train shows. You've got to get out and meet the customers or the potential customers. You can't just sit in your store. I've heard Mark talk like that, and obviously you all have the same philosophy. So anything that we can do to try to promote what you're doing, I'm all for.
Oh, appreciate that. We'll definitely reach out. We'd love to be back on here if we can and talk a little more about what's going to happen at the train show. That'd be awesome.
It's not a question, but I remember running into you gentlemen at the Timonium show in February.
Yeah.
And I came over and thanked you for making the long haul all the way to the East Coast just for our show. And it was good to see you there.
Oh, appreciate that. Yeah, that's been good. That's our second year, I think, at that show. And we try to make circuits when we can, right? It just makes sense if we can pull it off. So
hey, can I ask you guys, can I ask you a quick question? This is actually a bit of a marketing kind of input for us. We have this New Tracks Modeling Scholarship, and one of the places we think we can find applicants is in hobby shops. And so we've been talking about a program to create something for hobby shops. So I guess the question I'm trying to think through is, if we created something that was a 24, 30-inch by 18-inch poster, banner, sign that you could put up, would that make sense to put up in your store somewhere? I mean, if we made that available to you?
I think we might be able to figure something out with that. I'm thinking almost more, we've been talking between two of us and talking with Dave and Deb, our parents, about it, as maybe trying to put up an electronic screen to where we can cycle through different slides about things that are coming on, because we kind of get inundated with the posters, or here's the next train show flyer and all that kind of stuff.
If I give you guys I give you a quick hint, $150 for a 32-inch TV at Best Buy, and $37 on eBay to buy a little player that's basically it's an HDMI output video player, and you plug a memory stick in, it's got a remote control, and you can pick the video and play it on a loop.
Oh,
so for less than $200, you can have a 32-inch screen in your store, and you just produce PowerPoint slides and then basically save them as a video, and then you can just run them as a video loop.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a computer.
I know what I'm doing when we get back from Ohio.
Yep, that was the best news I've heard for a while. So that got my brother convinced.
Yeah,
right there.
if you
So
guys,
perfect, so.
you guys can get my email from Jim. I'll send you the links to the to them if you're interested.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, that's something we're trying to do, because we see that as a great opportunity. I mean, it'd be great if our store was right next to some tracks. So one of the things we're going to try to do is try to have a screen up to where we can do virtual rail fan, and watch trains while we're in the store, even though we're, 10 miles away from the track, kind of deal. So
yeah,
obviously rail fanning and model railroading kind of goes hand in hand. So
the local club that you have, if they would like to be on the show, I'd be interested in having them on our show and having them talk about their club and coming to your show, and why that's important to them and so forth. So if you think they would be interested, if you could, maybe have, Mark can certainly give you my email and put you in contact with us.
Yeah.
But if you think that the club might be interested, I'd like to have them on and find out about them and so forth.
I think we could do that, Jim. I think
for a town of 800 people, I think to support a brick and mortar hobby shop and a model railroad club, that's something that, I think everybody ought to be supportive of that.
We can definitely do that. I would love to even do something with the Fremo guys when they come. So if they could be on the show,
I would too.
Like that.
Love that. I love that idea because I don't hear people talking about Fremo. I used to, but I haven't for years now heard people really talk about Fremo. So I'd be all for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll help you out there. I'd love to get that and be on there. I think we got a couple local clubs that would be We call them local. They're within an hour of our store. So
Sounds good to me.
that would be great to be on here. So
Absolutely. Mark, thank you so much for bringing some great guys and a real magnificent sounding hobby shop for the show tonight. I mean, that's really special. Thank you.
No problem. I'm glad I could get these guys to come on.
Mark,
Patrick's got a question.
appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Patrick.
Oh, Jim, I kind of have a comment. We were talking about the new track, the model railroading, the model scholarship we were talking about off and on a couple of months ago. It just dawned on me. It just dawned on me now. You know, another great place you might want to promote that is the Boy Scouts of America. They have a merit badge called
if I could get somebody to return my call, I'd jump all over it. I call the local place where I live, the local scout organization, and got zero. I called the national, and then somebody gave me information for a national officer. Called them, got zero back from them. The place that I get callbacks is the Boy and Girls Club. But I haven't been able to reach the scout. Why? I'm not sure.
That's a shame.
It is.
Yeah, the national office, I think it's still in Irving, Texas. Was that the office you called, the national office?
Yep. And if you've got a contact there that you can give me that I haven't tried, or just if you have a contact, whether I've tried it or not, I'll know whether I've tried it once you give it to me. But if you can put me in contact with somebody that might at least talk to me about it, that'd be great.
Well, I've been out of it for a while. I mean, Chicago, where I'm at up here, I mean, the council that I'm part of, I mean, everyone's changed so much. I don't even know who to call anymore. But I could give you the number to the office and have them, and maybe you can call them and see if they say, I don't know if they can, I don't know if they can promote it, but I mean, at least it's like, it's part of it, you know, maybe not part of it. They don't want to change the requirements, but you know, kind of an extra, hey, while you're doing this merit badge, this is available to you. You know, it's kind of an extra add-on, but not make it a requirement. I mean, I'm the merit badge counselor for that particular, for model building merit badge. And granted, I've never gotten a scout that did it. You know, it's kind of becoming, a lot of scouts don't look at, you know, that one's kind of an unpopular merit badge, unfortunately. But even the railroading merit badge, there might be something there with that one too, maybe. But
well, you know, one of the requirements for our scholarship is it goes to a model railroad. I mean, that's one of the requirements, and that they're modelers. That you know, they actually build models. They are a model railroader.
Right. Right.
So the merit badge was a logical place, it seemed to me, for the kids that were working on the merit badge. They had to be interested in model railroading. So, you know, it seemed to me to be a natural.
Yeah.
But you know, if the local place won't call me back, if I can't get contact somehow with somebody that'll at least talk to us about it, then I don't know how we use that organization to help us promote it. Now, the Boys and Girls Club, locally, the guy couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been more supportive. I mean, he was just, you know, oh yeah, a fantastic, great, all the right things. Call the national contact. No callback. I can't get in touch with, quote, the national organization. Well, I don't have the time to try to find every Boys and Girls Club all over the individual cities all over the United States. So how we use those kind of organizations to help promote something that obviously is for the kids, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with that right now. That's why Mark has been so helpful, because Mark carries one of our banners to the various train shows that he goes to. Yeah. Well, at least we're covering then a part of the country that Mark is involved with, because he goes and he has our banner, and it's got a QR code on it, so people can, you know, immediately, if they want to, find out about the scholarship and get the details. And we've tried to make this so easy for the kids, because they can file the application electronically, they can download it electronically. It's,
that's the way to do it.
Can't be more, you know, we think that we've made it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
It's just how do we get the word out? So the train shows are important to us because people like Mark who go to the train shows, people like hobby shops where kids and so forth and people interested in model railroads come to, we see that as potential. Now, the Boys and Girls Club, yeah, I see that as a potential, but how, if they're not interested in talking to you about something like that, I don't know how you reach them. And the same way with the Scouts. The merit badge to me is a natural because they're interested in model railroading, otherwise they wouldn't be applying for the merit badge. So
Right.
at least there's some interest there.
Well, I think it's more, I don't think it's that modeling merit badge isn't specifically model railroading. It's more just building models in general. So, but I mean, it's still geared toward that direction. But the railroading merit badge might be a little better because that one talks about railroading and like real safety on the railroads and stuff like that. But also, there's a section in there about, you know, operating a model railroad and things like that, or building your own.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but either one, but regardless, you know, they should. I'm surprised no one got back to you about that.
I am too. And well, you know, look at the trouble you're having with the merit badge program. So, you know, sometimes I wonder. I had a student tell me the other day, and this surprised me. He said one of the big jokes here is if the kid got the scholarship, they wanted to know whether the father or the mother wrote the essay, because they know the kid didn't write the essay, because kids don't write essays anymore. They get their parents to write the essays for the scholarship
Other
application.
than that, they copy and paste it. Believe me. So much.
And so, you know, it makes me wonder, you know, if the kid's not interested enough in getting a scholarship, I find that kind of strange too. I mean, I just don't understand it. Then I found out my local school, because our scholarship is anybody in the United States can apply. He said, well, you know, we're not going to really promote that because it's too much trouble. You know, we want our kids to apply for stuff where they may have a better chance of succeeding. And I'm thinking, my gosh, you know, competition's competition. What's the problem? You know, we're offering money to the kid to help pay for his college.
Yeah.
You know, why be scared to apply for it just because, you know, you're competing nationally and rather than just locally? That surprised me. So we're learning as we go with our scholarship program, trying to make sure that you know, we communicate best we can. And kind of like the hobby shop owners, you know, we're trying a little bit of everything, as Mark can tell you, to try to get the word out and try to make sure that all the students possibly at least know that we exist.
Have you tried contacting like Lionel or like those big trains like Bachman and them? Have you tried maybe talking to them about it? They could put it on their websites and stuff.
Atlas put it out on their newsletter.
That's good.
That they have. The NMRA has supported it. So yeah, some of the large companies have, others, no. You know, Walters, you got to give it to them. Walters is the only private company that I'm aware of that has a scholarship for model railroaders. Only company. None of the others have it. Just Walters. And it's because of Walters that we're doing it. Because we thought, well, my gosh, it's a great idea. And nobody is doing it. All these companies that want to sell the products, and everybody's talking about, let's get more youth involved. Well, one of the ways to get more youth involved is to help pay for their college, it seems to me. So how come how come none of the large corporations and so forth and organizations aren't offering scholarships? So New Tracks started the scholarship fund because we couldn't find anybody that was doing it except Walters. And we supported Walters 100%. We had him on the show. I've written about him in my articles. We couldn't have been more supportive of them. So when we came out with ours, I called up Walters and I said, you want to join with us? And they said, no, we've got our own. Okay, that's fine. But we still support theirs because we think it's great to have model railroaders have the ability to help pay for their college through scholarships that are focused on them as model railroaders. We think that's a great way of trying to encourage young people to to get involved with modeling, number one, and get involved with model railroading, number two.
Okay. Well, I'll send you a phone number to my
Okay.
local console and see, maybe you might get some, hopefully you'll get
That's
some traction there. So
talk to your local group that you're involved with. See what reaction you get from them. I mean, you know,
I'm not part of a local group anymore. I've kind of backed out the last couple of years.
gotcha.
Yeah, it's too much on my plate. But I'll at least give you I'll see if I can grab a phone number, and
That's great.
I'll figure that out next couple of weeks.
Any help, because if we can support other people, that's part of what New Tracks is all about. We want support from everybody that we can possibly get. Thank you, Mark, for all you do for us. And the people that have come forward to help and get the scholarship off the ground for this far, we got the 501c3 in I think 30 days because of the help of an attorney, Jeff Jordan, who's a model railroader, who's on the show, and he volunteered the time and got his firm to approve him volunteering his time to help us get the 501c3. And he did, almost immediately. It took longer to get the corporation set up as a Florida corporation than it did to get the IRS to approve it as a 501c3. So, it's the people that have come forward to try to help us is phenomenal.
Yeah.
We're just trying to make sure that we notify all the possible kids to make sure that everybody has a fair chance to apply for the scholarship.
Well, keep chipping at it, Jim. That's you just got to keep chipping at it.
We're trying.
It's getting out there. So,
but that's why the hobby shops are important to me.
Yeah.
And regardless of how many there are around the country, those that are trying, those that are there that Mark is helping us find. I would have never known about this one in Nebraska if it hadn't have been for Mark finding them and knowing them and bringing them on the show. I'd never found out about the clubs. I'd never found out about the Primas. I'd never found out about the train show you're doing every 2 years. If it hadn't have been for Mark and his effort to try to communicate what the hobby shop owners around the country are doing for this hobby that none of us know about. None of us know about what's happening out there in the hobby shop industry.
Very true.
And it takes people like Mark and Mike and so forth to come on the show and to talk to us and be able to communicate the importance that the local hobby shop has today, not had in the past, is having today on our hobby. And it's because of the hobby shop owners that are here tonight that we have any hobby shops left and that are doing what they're doing right today for our hobby.
Yep, I agree, Jim. I think you said it very well. So,
guys,
and again, guys, thank you for being on the show tonight. We really appreciate you coming.
And Mark,
absolutely, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to come back, guys, about your train show, just let us know or whatever, and Mark can get you in touch with us.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that. I think that I would really appreciate the opportunity to be back on here. So
no problem. We're easy. Right, Mark?
That's awesome.
All right. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Mike.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
No problem.
Mark, thank you so very much.
No problem. I'll talk to you soon,
right.
Jim.
Well, that's it for our show tonight. It's a little long, I know, and I apologize for that, but I think we had an awful lot of great presenters, and I'm really happy about how the show went. So we have a caboose for you tonight, and that's what we'll end the show with. Looks like some of my hand-laid track. I gotta ask Tom Farrell if he has any of that on his railroad. That's it for our show tonight. Thank you so very much, everyone, for being here.